Some phones were popular. Some phones were powerful. But very few phones actually changed the way the entire industry looked. And the iPhone 4 was one of those phones. Because this was not just another iPhone. This was the moment a phone stopped feeling like a gadget and started feeling like an object people desired. And that is exactly why the iPhone 4 still matters. Welcome back, this is Pryce, where we help you save money, buy smarter tech, and reduce unnecessary electronic waste by giving older devices a second life. And today we are doing something a little different, because this is not just about specs. This is about one of the most iconic phones ever made. A phone that even now still feels bigger than the hardware inside it. Now here is what made the iPhone 4 special the moment people saw it. Before this phone, a lot of devices still looked like technology. Plastic backs, bulky shapes, awkward designs. But the iPhone 4 came in and changed the mood completely. Flat glass, stainless steel frame, sharp edges, clean symmetry. It looked serious, it looked expensive, and most importantly, it looked like the future. But the design was only the first shock, because this is where the phone stopped being pretty and started becoming influential. The iPhone 4 introduced what Apple called the Retina display, and at the time, it genuinely changed how people reacted to screens. Text looked sharper, icons looked cleaner, everything felt more polished. Today that sounds normal. Back then, it felt ridiculous. It made other phones look old almost overnight. And then there was FaceTime. Now yes, video calling sounds basic today, but back then it felt like one of those features people had imagined for years and finally got in a mainstream device. It made the phone feel futuristic in a way that was easy for normal people to understand. Not benchmark futuristic, real-life futuristic. Now this is where the story gets even more interesting, because the iPhone 4 was not only important for Apple, it was important for everybody else. This phone raised the pressure on the entire industry. Suddenly, it was not enough for a phone to work well. It had to feel premium. It had to feel carefully designed. It had to feel desirable. And that changed the expectations for the whole market. But here is the part people sometimes forget. The iPhone 4 was iconic and still imperfect. The screen was tiny by today's standards. The cameras were impressive then, but obviously limited now. The hardware was elegant, but this was still an older era of smartphones. And yes, the antenna controversy became part of the story too, which actually makes the phone even more legendary, not less. Because iconic products are rarely remembered for being perfect. They are remembered for being impossible to ignore. And that is exactly what the iPhone 4 was. Impossible to ignore. This was also one of the first times a smartphone became a cultural flex in a deeper way. People did not just want the iPhone 4 because it was useful. They wanted it because it felt like taste, like status, like modernity. Carrying one said something, and whether people admit it or not, that emotional layer changed the smartphone game forever. Now let's be honest, if you actually used an iPhone 4 today as your main phone, the experience would be more about nostalgia than practicality. This is not one of those still great daily driver stories. This is a different kind of value. The iPhone 4 matters because it reminds us of the moment phones stopped being little computers in your pocket and started becoming personal objects people built identity around. And that is why this phone still fits the Pryce conversation. Because when we talk about smarter tech, older tech, and reducing waste, we are not only talking about buying decisions, we are also talking about understanding which devices actually mattered, which ones moved the industry, which ones still deserve respect years later instead of being treated like disposable junk. I'll be honest, when I look at the iPhone 4, I do not just see an old Apple product. I see one of those rare devices that instantly takes you back to a moment in tech when everything felt like it was changing fast. And for a lot of people, this was the phone that made smartphones feel exciting in a new way. Not because it had the biggest numbers, but because it made the experience feel premium, intentional, and almost emotional. So was the iPhone 4 one of the most iconic phones ever made? Absolutely. Not because it was flawless, not because it still destroys modern phones, but because it changed expectations. It changed design language. It changed what normal people thought a premium phone should feel like. And once that happened, there was no going back. Let me know in the comments what phone you think changed the industry forever. And if you want more iconic phones, renewed flagships, and smarter tech stories, subscribe. Peace, health, and well-being in your home.